Captain Marcus Reeves slammed his fist on the briefing table, his voice cutting through the operations tent like a blade. I don't care what Washington says. I'm not babysitting some diversity checkbox in a combat zone. His eyes locked on the file in front of him, the photograph of a young woman in tactical gear staring back. She'll get my men killed. Around him, the other operators shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Reeves had 20 years in special operations. 3 Purple Hearts, and the kind of reputation that made even generals think twice before crossing him. This is Iron Wolf. We don't do experiments here. He threw the file across the table, scattering papers everywhere. She won't last a week. Before we continue with what happened next, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end of the story. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey reaches. Now let me tell you about the woman who would prove everyone wrong. The C-13 transport rattled through Afghan airspace, and Lieutenant Ava Carter sat alone in the back, her sniper rifle case between her knees. 23 years old, 5'6", and carrying the weight of every doubt that had ever been whispered about her. The other passengers, a mix of Army logistics personnel and contractors, kept their distance. She'd learned not to take it personally anymore. Her father's words echoed in her mind. They'll never make it easy for you, kiddo. So don't ask for easy. Just show them what you're made of. Staff Sergeant Jake Mitchell had said those words to her when she was 12, right before his last deployment to Fallujah. He never came home. What did come home was his M40A3 sniper rifle, his Navy Cross, and a letter telling her that she had the same steady hands he did, that she could be something extraordinary if she was willing to pay the price. She'd paid it. Montana winter mornings at 4 a.m. running mountain trails with a weighted pack. High school shooting competitions where she outscored grown men and earned their quiet resentment. A full ride to Montana State on an ROTC scholarship. Then the real test, Navy OCS, where being a woman meant every push-up was counted twice. Every mistake magnified 10 times. But she'd made it. Commissioned as an officer. Volunteered for SEAL sniper training, one of only 3 women ever allowed to attempt the pipeline. The other 2 had dropped out within weeks. Ava lasted 6 months through hypothermia training in the Pacific, through endless runs with boats on their heads, through instructors who told her daily that she was wasting everyone's time. She graduated. Barely. Bottom third of her class, but she graduated. And now she was being assigned to Iron Wolf, one of the most elite direct action units in JSOC. The men who hunted high-value targets in the darkest corners of the world. The men who didn't have time for politics or diversity initiatives or anyone who couldn't pull their weight. The loadmaster's voice crackled over the intercom. 5 minutes to Bagram. Ava checked her watch. 0340 hours. Still dark outside. Perfect. Maybe she could slip into the team compound without too much attention, get settled, prove herself quietly over time. She'd learned that approach worked better than trying to make a statement. The plane touched down hard, bouncing twice on the rough runway. As the rear ramp lowered, the distinctive smell of Afghanistan hit her, dust, diesel fuel, and something else she couldn't quite name. The smell of a war that had been going on longer than she'd been an adult. A young private met her at the bottom of the ramp. He couldn't have been more than 19, his uniform still crisp despite the dust. Lieutenant Carter, I'm supposed to escort you to the Iron Wolf compound. Lead the way. They drove in silence through the sprawling base, past rows of concrete barriers and sleeping CHU units, past the massive hangars where helicopters sat like sleeping insects. The private kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, clearly wanting to say something but not quite daring. Finally, he spoke. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Is it true you shot a perfect score at Scout Sniper School? The guys were talking about it. Ava almost smiled. Not perfect. I had 1 miss on the unknown distance qualification. Still, that's pretty good. It's adequate. The Iron Wolf compound was separated from the rest of the base by its own set of barriers and guards. The private showed his credentials and they waved him through. He pulled up in front of a single-story building with reinforced walls and blacked-out windows. This is as far as I go, ma'am. You're supposed to report directly to Captain Reeves. Ava grabbed her rifle case and pack. Thanks for the ride. Good luck, ma'am. You're gonna need it. The door to the compound was unmarked. Ava knocked twice and waited. Nothing. She tried the handle, unlocked. Inside, the smell of coffee and gun oil. A common area with mismatched furniture walls covered in unit patches and photographs of missions past. At the far end, a hallway leading to what looked like offices. You lost sweetheart. The voice came from her left. A man emerged from a side room, late 30s, built like a brick wall with a beard that probably violated about 6 different uniform regulations. He was holding a cup of coffee and wearing gym shorts and a faded t-shirt with the Iron Wolf logo. I'm looking for Captain Reeves. Yeah, you and everyone else who makes the mistake of getting assigned here. He looked her up and down, not bothering to hide his assessment. You're the new attachment they're forcing on us. Lieutenant Ava Carter reporting as ordered. Master Chief Ryan Decker, I run the enlisted side of this circus. He took a sip of coffee. Reeves is in his office, down the hall, last door on the right. Fair warning, he's in a mood. When isn't he? Decker's eyebrow raised slightly. You've done your homework. I always do. She found Reeves exactly where Decker said he'd be, sitting behind a desk covered in maps and intelligence reports. He didn't look up when she entered, didn't acknowledge her at all for a solid 30 seconds. Just kept reading his jaw, working like he was chewing on something bitter. Finally, close the door. Ava did. Sit down. She sat. Reeves set down the report he'd been reading and looked at her for the first time. His eyes were hard, flat, evaluating. Do you know why you're here, Lieutenant? I was assigned to provide sniper support for... That's the official answer. I'm asking if you know the real reason. He leaned forward. You're here because some admiral in Washington decided that Iron Wolf needed to be more inclusive. Because having a female operator makes for good publicity. Because it looks good in congressional hearings when they're asking for budget increases. Ava kept her face neutral. She'd expected this. With respect, sir, I'm here because I qualified for the position. Qualified? Reeves laughed, but there was no humor in it. You scraped through training. You're smaller and weaker than every other operator in this unit. You've never deployed to a combat zone, and now I'm supposed to trust you to watch my men's backs in the most dangerous operations we run. I can do the job, sir. Can you? Reeves stood up, walked around the desk. Let me tell you what happens out there, Lieutenant. We insert into hostile territory with zero support. We engage enemy forces that outnumber us 10 to 1. We operate in conditions that would break most conventional soldiers. And when things go wrong, and they always go wrong, every single person on my team needs to be someone I trust with my life. Someone who's proven themselves under fire. He stopped directly in front of her chair, looking down. You haven't proven anything. You're a liability. And I told JSOC exactly that. But they don't care about operational effectiveness anymore. They care about optics. Ava met his eyes. Then let me prove myself, sir. You think you get to prove yourself on my team in combat? Reeves shook his head. That's not how this works. You prove yourself before you ever step outside this wire. And based on what I've seen in your file, you don't have what it takes. My file shows I graduated. Your file shows you barely kept up with men who are physically superior to you. It shows you struggled with the physical demands. It shows instructors who had reservations about passing you but did it anyway because the political pressure was too intense. He crossed his arms. I don't work for politicians, Lieutenant. I work for the men in this unit, and I'm not going to risk their lives to make some admiral feel progressive. Ava felt anger rising in her chest, hot and familiar. The same anger she'd felt every time an instructor doubted her. Every time a classmate suggested she was only there to fill a quota, every time someone looked at her and saw a political statement instead of a soldier. But she'd learned long ago that anger wasn't useful. Not here. Not with men like Reeves. What do I need to do, sir? Reeves studied her. Excuse me? What do I need to do to earn a spot on the team? What's the test? There is no test. You're not getting on the team. Then why am I here? Because I don't have a choice about you being assigned to this compound. But I do have a choice about whether you deploy with us. And my choice is no. He walked back to his desk. You'll stay on base. You'll maintain your weapons. You'll attend briefings. But when we go outside the wire, you stay here. Non-negotiable. That's not what my orders say. Your orders say you're attached to Iron Wolf for training and evaluation. I'm evaluating you as not ready for combat operations. End of discussion. Ava stood up. With respect, sir, you're making a mistake. The mistake was Washington sending you here in the first place. Reeves sat down, picked up another report. Dismissed, Lieutenant. She turned to leave her hand on the door handle when Reeves spoke again. Carter. Yes, sir. My men have seen friends die. They've been shot, blown up, and left for dead in countries that don't exist on official maps. They've earned their place here with blood and sacrifice. You haven't earned anything yet. His voice was cold, final. Don't confuse being allowed to be here with actually belonging here. Those are two very different things. Ava left without another word. In the hallway, she found Decker leaning against the wall, clearly having heard at least part of the conversation. He looked at her with something that might have been sympathy, might have been pity. He's not wrong, you know, Decker said quietly. This isn't a regular unit. We operate on a different level. The physical demands, the mental stress, the split-second decisions that determine whether everyone goes home or nobody does. It's not something you can fake your way through. I'm not trying to fake anything. Maybe not, but you're also not one of us. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He pushed off the wall. Your bunk is in the female quarters such as they are. It's basically a converted storage room, but it's private and it locks. Chow is at 0600. Training starts at 0800. Try not to get killed. The converted storage room was exactly what Decker described, a 10 by 10 space with a cot, a foot locker, and a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. But it was hers. Private. Quiet. Ava set down her rifle case and sat on the cot. The spring squeaked under her weight. Outside, she could hear voices, the sound of the base waking up for another day. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter lifted off rotors, thumping against the thin morning air. Her father's letter was in her pack, worn soft from being read 1,000 times. She took it out, unfolded it carefully. Ava, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home. I need you to know something important. The world will tell you what you can't do. It'll tell you you're not strong enough, not tough enough, not good enough. It'll tell you there are places you don't belong. Don't listen. I've watched you shoot since you were 8 years old. You have something special, not just skill, but heart. The ability to stay calm when everything's falling apart. That's what makes a great sniper. Not muscles, not size. Calm under pressure. You have it. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Make them earn their doubt. Make them prove you wrong. And when they can't, make them eat their words. I love you, kiddo. Make me proud. Dad. She folded the letter, put it back in her pack. Outside, the sun was starting to rise, painting the mountains orange and gold. At 0800, she reported to the training area, a section of the compound set up with various ranges and obstacle courses. The other members of Iron Wolf were already there. 6 men, all of them watching her approach with varying degrees of skepticism. Decker made introductions. Gentlemen, this is Lieutenant Carter. She'll be joining us for training. Carter, this is your team, assuming you last long enough to actually be part of it. A tall African-American man with sergeant stripes nodded. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, Communications. Petty Officer First Class Tony Rodriguez, Breacher. Short, compact, with scarred hands and a crooked nose that had been broken more than once. Chief Petty Officer James Sullivan, Medic. Older than the others, maybe 40, with gray threading through his beard. Petty Officer Second Class David Chen, Demolitions. Young couldn't be more than 25, with glass and an incongruously friendly smile. Senior Chief Adam Crawford, Team Lead. Built like a linebacker with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. And finally, standing slightly apart from the others, Lieutenant Derek Hansen, Executive Officer. He was the only other commissioned officer besides Reeves, and his expression made it clear he wasn't happy about having company in that category. Let's see what you got, Lieutenant, Crawford said. Standard PT test, 2-mile run pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. We'll start easy. Easy. Ava had heard that before. It was never easy. The run came first. 2 miles in full boots and BDS around a course that included sand gravel and several steep inclines. Crawford set the pace, brutal and unforgiving. Ava kept up for the first mile, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. By the second mile, she was falling behind 10 meters, 20 meters, 30. She finished in 16 minutes and 40 seconds. Not terrible, not good enough. Crawford barely looked winded. Acceptable, barely. Pull-ups next. She managed 12 before her arms gave out. The minimum for SEAL standards was 15 for men. She'd done 18 in training, but that was weeks ago before travel and stress and too little sleep. Push-ups 42, standard was 50, sit-ups 65. Standard was 50, so at least she exceeded that one. When it was over, she stood there, hands on her knees, trying not to throw up, while the rest of the team looked on with expressions that ranged from disappointment to outright contempt. "She's weak," Rodriguez said flatly. "No way she can carry a full combat load over distance." "Give her time," Sullivan said, though he didn't sound convinced. "She's got to adjust to the altitude." "We don't have time," Webb countered. "Next mission is in 72 hours. We need someone we can count on, not someone we have to babysit." Hansen, the XO, spoke up. "Captain Reeves already said she's not deploying. Why are we even wasting time with this?" Crawford held up a hand. "Because those aren't our orders yet. Until Reeves makes it official, we train her like anyone else. If she washes out, she washes out on her own merit." "She already washed out," Rodriguez muttered, but he said it quietly enough that it could be ignored. "Shooting range," Crawford announced. "Let's see if she can actually do the job she was supposedly trained for." The range was set up with targets at various distances, 300 meters, 500 meters, 800 meters, and one at 1,000 meters. Standard sniper qualifications. Ava assembled her rifle, the M40A5 she'd carried through training with practiced efficiency. Checked the scope, adjusted for wind and elevation, settled into a prone position. The first shot at 300 meters was center mass. Perfect. Second shot, headshot. Perfect. She worked through the distances, methodically adjusting for each variable, controlling her breathing, squeezing the trigger with the same gentle pressure she'd been taught years ago by her father. When she reached the 1,000-meter target, she took an extra 30 seconds to calculate to feel the wind to account for the bullet drop. The shot echoed across the range. Through her scope, she watched the target's chest ring a perfect center mass hit at extreme distance. Behind her, she heard Chen whistle softly. "Okay, that was pretty good." "Pretty good." Webb shook his head. "I can't make that shot consistently." Crawford stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Again, all of them, twice as fast." Ava ran through the course again faster this time and hit every target, then a third time and a fourth. By the end, her shoulder was bruising from the recoil, but every shot had been on target. "She can shoot," Crawford admitted. "I'll give her that. But shooting at static targets on a range isn't the same as shooting at enemy combatants who are shooting back. Under stress, under fire, with lives on the line, that's a different story." "So test me under stress," Ava said. Crawford smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. "Oh, we will, Lieutenant. We absolutely will." The stress test came that afternoon. They put her in full combat gear, 60 pounds of equipment, armor, ammunition, water, medical supplies, and had her run an obstacle course while they threw smoke grenades, fired blanks from rifles, and screamed at her to move faster. Every time she slowed down, they added another lap. Every time she failed an obstacle, they added weight to her pack. After 2 hours, she was on the verge of collapse, her vision tunneling her hands, shaking so badly she could barely grip her rifle. And that's when Crawford set up a shooting scenario, targets appearing at random distances, while she was still gasping for air, still dizzy from exertion. "Engage, 300 meters left side." Ava dropped to prone, found the target, fired. Hit. 500 meters right flank. She shifted, acquired, fired. Hit. 2 targets, 400 and 600 meters, simultaneous engagement. Closer target, first, then adjust for distance. 2 shots, 2 hits. Cease fire. Ava lay there in the dirt, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. Every muscle in her body was screaming. She wanted to close her eyes just for a second, just to rest. "On your feet, Lieutenant," Crawford's voice, hard, unyielding. She forced herself up, swaying slightly, black spots dancing at the edges of her vision. "You can shoot," Crawford said. "Under stress, you can shoot. That's good, that's a start. But there's more to this job than being able to pull a trigger." "I know that, Chief. Do you?" He stepped closer. "Do you know what it's like when a teammate goes down and you have to drag him 200 meters to an extraction point while taking fire? Do you know what it's like to run out of ammunition and have to fight hand-to-hand with someone who wants to kill you? Do you know what it's like to make a split-second decision that determines whether a mission succeeds or everyone dies? No, Chief, I don't know those things. Not yet. Not yet, Crawford repeated. Maybe not ever. You understand what's at stake here. This isn't about you proving yourself. This isn't about you earning respect or making a statement. This is about whether you can be trusted when everything goes to hell. Because it will go to hell, Lieutenant. It always does. I understand. I don't think you do, but you're about to. That night at 0200 hours, they woke her up with flashbang grenades, dragged her out of her bunk, threw a hood over her head, zip-tied her hands behind her back. Resistance to interrogation training, the kind usually reserved for SCRE school graduates. They threw her in a room she could tell it was small from the echo and left her there for what felt like hours. No food, no water, no bathroom. Just darkness and silence and her own thoughts spiraling. When they finally came for her, they put her in a stress position, kneeling with her arms extended, holding a heavy sandbag. Every time she lowered her arms, someone would strike the wall next to her head with something metal, the sound deafening in the confined space. Why are you really here? A voice she didn't recognize, distorted somehow. I'm assigned to Iron Wolf for, The sandbag was ripped from her hands and someone shoved her face first into the wall. Wrong answer. Why are you really here? I don't understand the question. Are you here to spy on us, to report back to your handlers in Washington about how we operate? No. Are you here to undermine Captain Reeves to get him removed from command? No. Then why? Why would they send someone like you to a unit like this unless there was an ulterior motive? Ava's mind was racing, trying to figure out what they wanted to hear, what the right answer was. But there wasn't one. This was designed to break her to see how she handled uncertainty and fear. I'm here to do my job, she said finally. That's all. They let her drop to the floor. Someone cut the zip ties, pulled the hood off. She was back in the compound in what looked like a storage room. Crawford stood there along with Webb and Rodriguez, all of them watching her carefully. How do you feel, Lieutenant? Crawford asked. Ava's wrists were raw from the zip ties. Her shoulders ached from the stress position. Her face was bruised where they'd shoved her into the wall. I'm fine, Chief. You're not fine. You're beat to hell and exhausted. But you didn't break. You didn't give us anything we could use against you. That's good. He offered her a hand up. That's very good. She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. Was this part of the evaluation? Everything's part of the evaluation, Webb said. Every moment you're here, we're watching, measuring, deciding if you're worth the risk. And, Rodriguez shrugged, you haven't quit yet. That's something. It wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement, but it was more than she'd gotten before. Over the next 2 days, they ran her through every drill they could think of. Vehicle extraction under fire, building clearance, hostage rescue scenarios, medical emergencies, equipment failures, everything that could possibly go wrong in the field. She made mistakes, lots of them. Took too long to reload under pressure. Missed a door during a room clearing. Failed to properly assess a casualty's injuries. Each mistake was noted, discussed, used as evidence that she wasn't ready. But she also did things right. Made shots that impressed even the skeptical Rodriguez. Kept her calm during a simulated ambush when 2 of the experienced operators panicked. Solved a tactical problem that had stumped Chen. Slowly, grudgingly, they started to treat her less like an unwanted burden and more like a potential teammate. Not quite accepted, but not quite rejected either. Somewhere in between. On the 3rd day, Captain Reeves called a team meeting. Everyone gathered in the briefing room. Reeves at the front, the rest of the team seated, Ava standing in the back corner because there weren't enough chairs. We have a mission, Reeves announced. High-value target. Taliban commander named Rashid Ahmadi. Intelligence puts him in a compound 40 kilometers north of here. He's meeting with several other high-level operatives to plan a major attack on Kabul. Our job is to infiltrate, capture Ahmadi alive, if possible, eliminate him if necessary, and extract before his security force can respond. He pulled up a satellite image of the target compound. 3 buildings surrounded by walls with clear sight lines in every direction. This is going to be a night operation. We insert via helicopter at 0200 hours, establish overwatch positions, and wait for confirmation that Ahmadi is on site. Once confirmed, we move in fast and hard. 12 minutes from insertion to extraction. Any longer and we'll have every Taliban fighter in the province coming down on us. Reeves looked around the room. Hansen will lead the assault team, Crawford, Webb, Rodriguez, and Chen. Sullivan stays with the vehicles as medical support. I'll coordinate from the TOC. There was a noticeable absence in that list. Ava waited for her assignment, but Reeves didn't mention her. Finally, Crawford spoke up. What about Carter? Carter stays on base. Sir, we need a dedicated Overwatch sniper for this mission. The compound has multiple approaches, and if their security force arrives during the operation, we'll need someone to provide suppressing fire from a distance. I'm aware of the tactical requirements, Chief. Then you know Carter is the best qualified. I know she's inexperienced and unproven in combat. I'm not risking this mission on someone who might freeze up when it matters. Reeves's voice was final. She stays here. That's an order. Crawford looked like he wanted to argue further but thought better of it. Yes, sir. The briefing continued, but Ava barely heard it. She stood there invisible while they planned a mission she wasn't allowed to be part of. All the training, all the tests, all the effort, none of it mattered. Reeves had already made up his mind. After the briefing, she found herself alone in the armory cleaning her rifle, even though it didn't need cleaning. Just something to do with her hands while her mind churned. He's wrong, you know. She looked up. Sullivan stood in the doorway, his medical pack slung over one shoulder. About what? About you, you're ready. I've seen the operators with twice your experience who couldn't keep it together half as well as you did during the stress tests. Sullivan came over, leaned against the workbench. Reeves is a good officer. He cares about his men, but he's also stubborn as hell, and once he makes up his mind about something, it's almost impossible to change it. So what do? You wait. You keep training. And when the opportunity comes, because it will come, you be ready to prove him wrong. Sullivan smiled slightly. Reeves respects one thing above all else: results. Give him results he can't ignore, and he'll have no choice but to see you differently. And if that opportunity never comes, then you'll have learned an important lesson about how unfair life can be, and you'll deal with it like everyone else does. You'll adapt, overcome, and find another way. Sullivan pushed off the bench. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to get your chance sooner than you expect. This is Afghanistan, Lieutenant. Things always go sideways here. He left and Ava went back to cleaning her rifle, Sullivan's words echoing in her mind. Things always go sideways. At 0200 hours, she stood on the flight line, watching the team load into the Black Hawk helicopter. They moved with practiced efficiency, checking equipment, confirming communications, going through pre-mission rituals that had kept them alive through dozens of operations. Reeves was there too, watching them prepare. His face was set, focused, already wargaming scenarios in his mind. He glanced at Ava once, just once, and in that look she saw something she hadn't expected: doubt. Not doubt about his decision to leave her behind, but doubt about whether that decision was right. Then the moment passed and he was all business again, conferring with Hansen about extraction contingencies. The helicopter's rotors spun up and the team climbed aboard. Crawford was the last one in. He looked back at the compound, saw Ava standing there and gave her a slight nod. Not quite solidarity, but acknowledgement. Recognition that she was part of this even if she wasn't going with them. The Black Hawk lifted off its running lights, disappearing into the darkness. Ava stood there until she couldn't hear the rotors anymore, until there was nothing but silence and stars and the cold Afghan night. Inside the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center, Reeves and his staff monitored the mission's progress through radio chatter and drone feeds. Ava wasn't supposed to be there, but no one had explicitly told her to leave, so she stood in the back corner, watching the screens, listening to the calm, professional voices of the team as they reported their positions. Overwatch 1 in position. Overwatch 2 set. Assault team at Rally Point Alpha, waiting for confirmation on target. The drone feed showed the compound in eerie green-tinted detail. 2 guards at the main gate smoking cigarettes. Lights on in one of the buildings. Several vehicles parked in the courtyard. Then a new voice on the radio. TOC, this is Overwatch 1. We have confirmation. Ahmadi just entered the main building. Multiple armed personnel with him. Count 6, maybe 7. Reeves leaned forward. Assault team, you are clear to proceed. Execute, execute, execute. On the screen, Ava watched as thermal signatures moved toward the compound. Fast, coordinated, professional. The guards at the gate went down without a sound, suppressed shots from the Overwatch snipers. The assault team breached the wall, moved toward the main building. Everything was going according to plan, and then it wasn't. Contact, we have multiple armed personnel emerging from the west building. At least 15 Overwatch 2 engage those targets. They're using civilians as shields. I don't have a clear shot. Assault Team Exfil, now the compound is compromised. On the drone feed chaos, muzzle flashes lighting up the courtyard, the assault team falling back under heavy fire, and more vehicles approaching from the north, reinforcements that intelligence hadn't known about. Reeves was on the radio immediately. All elements, this is Iron Wolf 6, abort the mission. I repeat, abort. Get to the extraction point. 6, this is Hansen. We're pinned down. Rodriguez is hit. We can't move without suppressing fire on that west building. Overwatch, can you provide suppression? -6. We're taking fire ourselves. We need to displace or we're going to get overrun. Ava watched the screen, her heart pounding. Watched as the thermal signatures representing her team, even though they'd never quite accepted her, started to separate to scatter under pressure. 6, we've got vehicles closing from the north. At least 4 trucks with mounted weapons. ETA 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Not enough time to extract. Not enough time to get everyone out. Reeves's jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. QRF, how fast can you spin up? The Quick Reaction Force commander responded, 10 minutes minimum, sir. We don't have 10 minutes. Ava stepped forward, knowing she was about to cross a line she couldn't uncross. Sir, I can help. Reeves didn't even look at her. Get out of my TOC, Lieutenant. Sir, I can provide overwatch from... I said get out. But she didn't move. She looked at the screen, at the positions, at the tactical situation unfolding. There's a ridge line 800 meters east of the compound. If I can get there, I'll have clear shots on both the west building and the northern approach. I can buy them time. You can get yourself killed and accomplish nothing. Or I can save your team. Reeves finally looked at her, his eyes blazing. You have no combat experience. You've never been under fire. You'll panic, miss your shots, and give away your position. Then we'll have to rescue you too. Maybe, Ava said, or maybe I'm exactly what you need right now. Either way, they're going to date if someone doesn't help them. And I'm the only option you've got. The radio crackled. 6, we need help now. Rodriguez is bleeding out and we can't move him. Reeves stared at her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then, fine, but if you get killed, I'm not writing a letter to your mother explaining how I sent you into a combat zone you weren't ready for. I don't have a mother. She died when I was 6. Then I won't have to write a letter. He turned to his operations sergeant. Get her a vehicle and a driver. Fast. 5 minutes later, Ava was in the back of a modified Humvee, her rifle case beside her, racing through the darkness toward a battle she'd never been trained for, toward a moment that would define everything. The driver, a young specialist named Martinez, kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. You sure about this, ma'am? No, Ava admitted, but we're doing it anyway. She checked her rifle, loaded a fresh magazine, adjusted her scope. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She'd expected them to shake, expected fear to overwhelm her training, but instead there was just clarity. Focus, her father's voice in her mind, calm under pressure. That's what makes a great sniper. Okay, Dad, she whispered. Let's find out if you were right. The Humvee hit a pothole, and Ava's head slammed against the roof. Martinez cursed, jerked the wheel, accelerated harder. Through the windshield, the horizon flickered with muzzle flashes, orange bursts in the darkness like fireflies from hell. 2 minutes out, ma'am. 2 minutes. Ava's radio crackled with chaos. Crawford's voice strained but controlled. We're down to half ammunition. Rodriguez needs a medevac now or he's not making it. Reeves responded from the TOC. QRF is still 8 minutes out. Hold your position. We don't have 8 minutes. The Humvee skidded to a stop at the base of the ridgeline. Ava threw open the door, grabbed her rifle case, her pack with extra ammunition. Martinez had his own rifle up, scanning for threats. I'll hold here, ma'am. You got a radio? Yeah. Use it if you need extraction. I'm not leaving without you. Ava started climbing. The ridgeline was steeper than it looked on the satellite images, loose rock and sand shifting under her boots. Her pack felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her breath came in gasps, the altitude, the weight, the adrenaline, all conspiring against her. Halfway up, she slipped, went down hard on one knee. Pain shot through her leg, but she forced herself up, kept climbing. Behind her, the sound of gunfire intensified. Men were dying while she struggled up a hill. Move faster. She reached the top and dropped into a prone position, gasping, her heart hammering, pulled out her rifle, assembled it with shaking hands. No, not shaking. Steady. Training took over muscle memory, pushing aside panic. Scope attached. Magazine loaded. Bolt action, smooth and certain. Through the scope, the compound jumped into focus. 800 meters. Maybe 850. She could see the muzzle flashes from the west building, see the assault team pinned behind a low wall, see Rodriguez on the ground with Sullivan working on him. Iron Wolf 6, this is Carter. I'm in position. A pause, then Reeves identified targets and engage at will. Make them count, Lieutenant. No pressure. She found her first target, a man with an AK-47, firing from a second-story window of the west building. Adjusted for distance for the slight crosswind coming from the north. Exhaled slowly. Squeezed. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. Through the scope, she saw the man drop. Target down, west building, second floor. She shifted, found another target. Fired. Another man down. Crawford's voice on the radio. I don't know who's shooting, but keep it up. We can move. Ava worked methodically, like she was back on the range. Like these weren't people, but paper targets that didn't bleed or scream. Another shot, another body falling. The men in the west building started to realize they were being picked off, started pulling back from the windows. That's when the trucks arrived from the north. 4 of them, exactly as intelligence had reported, each with a mounted machine gun. They stopped just outside the compound walls, and men poured out, at least 20 fighters, maybe more, that all armed, all moving toward the pinned assault team. 6, we've got major reinforcements. We need to exfil now. Ava swung her scope to the trucks. At this distance, she could see the gunners manning the heavy weapons, could see them traversing their barrels toward her teammates. If those guns opened up, the assault team wouldn't stand a chance. She made a decision, aimed not at the gunners but at the fuel tank of the nearest truck. Held her breath. Fired. The truck exploded in a ball of flame that lit up the entire area. The force of the blast knocked down several fighters, sent others running. The other trucks scattered, drivers panicking. Holy shit, Chen's voice. Was that you, Carter? Confirming, Ava said, already looking for her next target. The explosion had created chaos, but it wouldn't last long. She needed to capitalize. She fired into the scattered fighters, dropping 3 in quick succession. Reloaded, continued firing. The enemy was disorganized now, confused about where the shots were coming from, taking cover in all the wrong places. Assault team moved to extract, Hansen ordered. Carter's given us an opening. Through the scope, Ava watched them move, Crawford and Webb carrying Rodriguez between them. Chen providing cover fire, Hansen bringing up the rear. They were exposed for 30 meters. 30 meters where any lucky shot could end them. She shifted her aim to the west building, fired at anything that moved in the windows. Saw a man raise his rifle toward the retreating team and put a round through his chest before he could pull the trigger. The assault team made it to their vehicles. Engines roared to life. But the fighters from the north were regrouping, and they'd figured out the general direction of her position. Bullets started hitting the rocks around her, ricochets whining past her head. Carter, get out of there, Reeves's voice. They've marked your position. Ava fired 3 more shots, then rolled away from her position, just as a rocket-propelled grenade screamed overhead and detonated behind her. The blast wave picked her up and threw her down the backside of the ridgeline. She tumbled, hit rocks, felt something in her ribs crack. She came to a stop 20 feet down, her rifle still somehow clutched in her hands, her ears ringing so loud she couldn't hear anything else. Blood ran down her face from somewhere. Her left arm wasn't working right. Get up. She forced herself to her knees, then to her feet. The world tilted and spun, but she stayed upright through sheer will. Staggered down the hill toward where Martinez should be waiting. He wasn't there. The Humvee sat empty, out driver's door open. Martinez's rifle on the ground. And blood. A trail of blood leading away into the darkness. Martinez, no answer. Ava's radio crackled. Carter, what's your status? She tried to key the mic, but her left hand wouldn't respond. Used her right hand, awkward. Martinez is missing. I've got blood trail heading east. Negative, Lieutenant. You are ordered to return to base immediately. We'll send a team for Martinez. By the time they get here, he'll be dead. That's not your call. Ava looked at the blood trail, at the darkness beyond. Every instinct screamed at her to follow orders to get in the Humvee and drive back to safety. But Martinez had stayed for her. had promised not to leave without her. She couldn't leave without him. "Sorry, Six. Radio trouble. You're breaking up." She turned off the radio and followed the blood trail. The trail led through a wadi, a dry riverbed filled with loose stones that shifted treacherously under her boots. Her ribs screamed with every breath. Her left arm hung useless at her side, dislocated shoulder, she thought, or maybe broken collarbone. Hard to tell through the pain. She found Martinez 200 meters from the Humvee. He was alive, but barely dragging himself forward with one arm, while the other clutched his stomach. 3 Taliban fighters stood over him, arguing in Pashto about something. One of them kicked Martinez in the ribs and he cried out. Ava raised her rifle one-handed, braced it against a rock. The scope was cracked from her fall, useless. Iron sights then. She'd done it before back in Montana hunting with her father when she was too small to hold the rifle steady with a scope. First target center mass. Squeezed. The man dropped. The other 2 spun toward her position, rifles coming up. She worked the bolt with practiced speed, fired again. Second man down. The third man dove behind cover, started shooting wildly in her direction. Bullets sparked off rocks, sent stone chips flying. Ava couldn't get a clean shot, and with one arm she couldn't maneuver to a better angle. Martinez rolled over, pulled a sidearm from his holster with a bloody hand, fired 3 times at the third fighter. At least one round hit because the man jerked backward and went still. Ava ran to Martinez, dropped to her knees beside him. His stomach wound was bad. She could see intestines through the tear in his uniform. He was going into shock, his skin gray and clammy. "Stupid," Martinez gasped. "Took a piss. They came out of nowhere. Save your strength. I'm getting you out of here." Can't move." "You can and you will." Ava grabbed his gear harness with her good hand and started dragging him. Pain exploded through her damaged ribs, but she ignored it, focused only on moving on, getting Martinez back to the Humvee. She'd made it 50 meters when she heard voices behind her. More fighters drawn by the gunfire. She couldn't see how many, but it sounded like at least a dozen. No way she could outrun them while dragging Martinez. No way she could fight them all one-handed. She keyed her radio with her chin, prayed it still worked. "Any Iron Wolf element, this is Carter. I'm 200 meters east of Extract Point Alpha with wounded. Multiple hostiles closing. I need immediate support." Static. Then Crawford's voice. "Carter assault team is RTB with wounded. We can turn around, but it'll take us 10 minutes. 10 minutes. She didn't have 10 minutes. "Negative, Chief. Get Rodriguez to medical. I'll figure something out." "Lieutenant, that's not..." She turned off the radio again. Martinez was unconscious now, his breathing shallow and rapid. Ava dragged him into a small depression in the wadi, positioned him so his body was below the sight line. Then she found a position 15 meters away with good coverage and waited. The fighters came cautiously spread out in a tactical formation that told her these weren't untrained militia, but actual soldiers. Professional. Dangerous. She counted 12. 12 against 1, and she was injured, low on ammunition, and defending a position that couldn't be defended. Her father's voice, "Sometimes you can't win, so you make them pay the highest price possible for beating you." The first fighter entered her kill zone and she dropped him with a headshot. The others scattered, started returning fire, but they still didn't have her exact position. She shifted 20 feet to the left, dropped another one, shifted again. But they were learning triangulating on her muzzle flash. Bullets started getting closer. One round hit so close it threw sand in her face, temporarily blinding her. And when her vision cleared, 3 of them were advancing on Martinez's position. She fired, dropped one, but the other 2 kept coming. She worked the bolt, fired again, but the rifle just clicked. Empty. She dropped the rifle, pulled her sidearm, a Sig Sauer P226 with 1 magazine. 15 rounds. She made them count, fired carefully, methodically. 2 more fighters down, but the rest had found her position. They opened up with everything they had, a concentrated wall of fire that chewed up the rocks around her. She couldn't move, couldn't shoot back, could only press herself as flat as possible and pray. A grenade landed 3 feet away. Ava grabbed it and threw it back in one desperate motion. It detonated in midair, the blast wave slamming her against the rocks. Her ears rang, blood ran from her nose, but she was alive. 7 rounds left in her pistol. At least 8 fighters still moving. This was it. This was how it ended. Then the night exploded with the sound of rotor blades. and the distinctive hammering of helicopter-mounted miniguns. A Black Hawk appeared overhead like an avenging angel, its guns tearing into the Taliban positions with devastating precision. Bodies flew apart under the sustained fire. Within 30 seconds, it was over. The surviving fighters had fled, and the ones who hadn't fled weren't moving anymore. The Black Hawk landed in a storm of dust and noise. Crawford jumped out, ran to Ava's position. "You suicidal lieutenant, you just took on a dozen fighters by yourself." "Didn't have much choice, Chief." "Where's Martinez?" She pointed. Crawford and Sullivan ran to him, got him on a stretcher, loaded him into the helicopter. Then Crawford came back for Ava. "Can you walk?" "Maybe." "Good enough." He got under her good shoulder, half-carried her to the bird. Once inside, Sullivan immediately started working on her, checking her injuries. Starting an IV, his hands steady and sure despite the chaos. Dislocated shoulder, possible broken ribs, concussion, multiple lacerations, and you're bleeding internally. Sullivan shook his head. "You should be dead, Lieutenant." "Sorry to disappoint." Crawford sat across from her, his face hard to read. "Finally, that was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Maybe both. Martinez stayed for me. I couldn't leave him. Most officers would have. Hell, most people would have." Crawford looked at her for a long moment. "You did good tonight, Carter." "Real good." From Crawford, that was practically a Medal of Honor. The helicopter rose into the night sky, banking toward base. Through the open door, Ava could see the burning wreckage of the compound, could see the tactical situation that had nearly killed her entire team, could see how close they'd all come to not coming home. Sullivan finished with her IV and moved to Martinez, whose vitals were crashing. "He's coding. I need help." Crawford moved immediately following Sullivan's instructions, doing chest compressions while Sullivan worked. Ava watched helplessly, her vision starting to tunnel from blood loss and exhaustion. "Come on, Martinez," Sullivan muttered. "Don't you quit on me. Don't you dare quit." The helicopter pilot's voice over the intercom. 5 minutes to base. Trauma team is standing by." 5 minutes. Martinez had to hold on for 5 minutes. His heart stopped twice during those 5 minutes. Twice Sullivan shocked him back. By the time they landed, Ava had lost consciousness. She woke up in the base hospital, fluorescent lights burning her eyes. Her shoulder was back in its socket and immobilized in a sling. Her ribs were wrapped tight. Her head felt like someone had used it for batting practice. Sullivan sat in a chair next to her bed reading a paperback. He looked up when she stirred. "Welcome back, Lieutenant. You've been out for 6 hours. Martinez. In surgery. Touch and go, but the docs think he'll make it. You got him here just in time." Ava closed her eyes, relief washing over her. "Rodriguez. Stable, lost a lot of blood, but Sullivan patched him up good." He paused. "You saved my team, Carter. All of us. We would have been overrun without your covering fire. Just did my job." "No, you did a lot more than your job." Sullivan stood up. "Captain Reeves wants to see you when you're able. Fair warning, he's not happy about you disobeying his direct order to return to base." "Yeah, I figured that was coming. But he's also not happy that you nearly got yourself killed saving Martinez." He's conflicted, which for Reeves is basically the same as being impressed. Sullivan headed for the door, then stopped. "By the way, the team took a vote. You're in. Official member of Iron Wolf, assuming you still want to be after Reeves is done chewing you out." He left before Ava could respond. 2 hours later, freshly medicated and still feeling like she'd been hit by a truck, Ava stood in Reeves's office. He sat behind his desk, the same desk where he'd told her she'd never be part of his team, and stared at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Sit down before you fall down, Lieutenant." She sat. Reeves leaned back in his chair. "I should have you court-martialed. Disobeying direct orders, engaging the enemy without authorization, abandoning your vehicle, conducting an unauthorized rescue operation. That's enough violations to get you kicked out of the military entirely." "Yes, sir. But if I did that, I'd also have to explain why I left a young specialist behind to die, why I ordered you to abandon a wounded soldier, why I valued operational security over a human life." Reeves rubbed his face. "The official report is going to say that you maintained radio contact throughout, that your actions were within the scope of your mission parameters, and that you showed exceptional courage under fire. Unofficially, we both know you told me to go to hell and did whatever you wanted." "Sir, I'm not finished." Reeves stood up, walked to the window. Outside, another helicopter was landing, bringing in supplies or personnel or the endless machinery of war. I was wrong about you, Carter. I thought you were a political plant. Thought you'd freeze up when it mattered. Thought having you on my team would get people killed. He turned to face her. Instead, you saved lives, multiple lives. You proved you're willing to put yourself on the line for your teammates. That's all I've ever wanted from anyone in this unit. He pulled something from his desk drawer, her personnel file, the same one he'd thrown across the room days ago. He set it down carefully, almost reverently. You're assigned to Iron Wolf as a full team member, effective immediately. No probation, no evaluation period. You've earned your place. Reeves extended his hand. Welcome to the team, Lieutenant. Ava shook his hand, her grip firm despite the pain in her shoulder. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. Now that you're officially one of us, I'm going to work you twice as hard as anyone else. You've got skills, but you still have a lot to learn. I'm ready, sir. We'll see. Reeves sat back down. Dismissed. And Carter, get some rest. We have another mission in 72 hours and I need you at 100%. Ava left his office and found the entire team waiting in the hallway. Crawford, Webb, Rodriguez in a wheelchair with bandages across his chest, Chen, Sullivan, Hansen. Even Martinez was there somehow, pale and shaky, but standing. Crawford spoke for all of them. Heard you made it official. Guess that means we're stuck with you. Guess so, Chief. Rodriguez rolled forward. You saved my life out there, Lieutenant. I won't forget that. Neither will I, Martinez added quietly. Webb crossed his arms, but he was smiling. You know what this means, right? You're buying the first round when we get back to civilization. Fair enough. They headed to the team room together, and for the first time since arriving in Afghanistan, Ava felt like she belonged. Not because she'd proven herself to be as strong as them, as tough as them, as experienced as them, but because when it mattered most, she'd shown up. She'd fought. She'd bled alongside them. And in Iron Wolf, that was the only qualification that truly mattered. The team room smelled like stale coffee and testosterone, but Ava had never been more comfortable anywhere in her life. Crawford had his feet up on a battered table, cleaning his rifle with the kind of attention most people reserve for newborn babies. Webb was arguing with Chen about some football game from 3 years ago that apparently still mattered. Rodriguez sat in his wheelchair, flipping through intelligence reports, even though Sullivan had explicitly told him to rest. Hansen walked in and tossed a folder on the table. New mission briefing in 20? Reeves wants everyone there, including you, Carter. What's the target? Crawford asked without looking up from his rifle. CIA asset got himself captured. They want us to get him back before he starts talking. Webb whistled. How long's he been in custody? 18 hours. Then he's already talking. CIA trains them to hold out for 48, but nobody actually makes it that long. Which is why we're going tonight instead of planning properly. Hansen grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler. Reeves is going to love this one. 20 minutes later, they gathered in the briefing room. Reeves stood at the front with a satellite image projected on the wall behind him, a compound that looked disturbingly similar to the one from their last mission. Same high walls, same multiple buildings, same tactical nightmare. This is Marcus Chen, no relation to our Chen. Reeves pulled up a photograph of a Chinese-American man in his 40s, soft around the middle, wearing glasses. He's been running intelligence operations in the tribal areas for 3 years. Good at his job, terrible at staying out of trouble. 2 days ago, he went dark during a meeting with a local informant. 12 hours ago, we got confirmation he's being held by a splinter group called the Zarqawi Network. Never heard of them, Crawford said. That's because they're new. Former Taliban who thought the main organization was getting too soft, if you can believe that. They're led by a man named Khalid Zarqawi, and his specialty is making examples out of captured Westerners. Videos executions the whole propaganda package. If we don't get Chen out in the next 24 hours, he'll be all over the internet with his head separated from his body. Rodriguez shifted in his wheelchair. What's the intel on the compound's defenses? Minimal. We know there are at least 15 fighters on site, probably more. Unknown number of heavy weapons. And here's the fun part. The compound is in a valley with only one access road, surrounded by high ground on 3 sides. It's a natural kill zone. Perfect, Webb muttered. Absolutely perfect. Reeves continued. Standard rescue operation. We insert via helicopter, 2 clicks out, move on foot to minimize noise. Establish overwatch positions on the high ground, then the assault team breaches and extracts Chen. 12 minutes from breach to wheels up, or we're going to have every fighter in the valley coming down on us. He looked directly at Ava. Carter, you'll be our primary overwatch sniper. You'll position on the eastern ridge with a clear view of the compound and the access road. Your job is to eliminate any threats to the assault team and provide early warning if reinforcements arrive. Yes, sir. This isn't like last time. You won't have the luxury of shooting from a static position. You'll need to be mobile, adaptable, ready to displace if they locate you. And if things go sideways, which they will, you need to be ready to make hard decisions without waiting for orders. Understood. Understood, sir. Good. We inserted 0300. Get your gear ready and try to sleep. You're going to need it. The briefing broke up, everyone heading off to their pre-mission routines. Ava found herself in the armory with Sullivan, both of them checking their equipment with the kind of obsessive detail that kept people alive. First official mission, Sullivan said, threading medical supplies into his pack with practiced efficiency. How you feeling? Nervous. Good. Nervous means you're paying attention. He pulled out a tourniquet, checked it, packed it away. The guys who scare me are the ones who stop being nervous. That's when you get sloppy. I've loaded magazines, counting rounds twice to be sure. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Why'd you vote for me after that first night? I barely passed your tests. Sullivan was quiet for a moment, organizing his medical kit. You want the honest answer? Yeah. Because you remind me of why I joined in the first place. Not for the glory or the adrenaline or any of that garbage, but because sometimes there are people who need help and somebody has to be willing to step up. He looked at her. You stepped up for Martinez when you didn't have to, when it would have been smarter and safer to leave him. That told me everything I needed to know about who you are. I just did what anyone would do. No, you didn't? Most people wouldn't. Most people would have followed orders, gone back to base, and slept fine that night, knowing they made the tactical decision. You couldn't live with that. Neither could I. Sullivan zipped up his pack. That's why you're here, Carter. Not because you're the strongest or the fastest or the best shot, but because when it matters, you do the right thing, even when it's hard. That's worth more than all the physical strength in the world. He left, and Ava sat there with her magazines and her rifle and her thoughts. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the sound of helicopters, the constant rhythm of war that never seemed to stop. At 0245, the team geared up in silence. Body armor helmets, night vision ammunition, water medical supplies. 70 pounds of equipment that somehow felt heavier than it had during training. Ava checked her rifle for the third time, adjusted her scope, made sure her sidearm was secure. Crawford appeared beside her. First real mission got you spooked. A little. Good. The day you stop being spooked is the day you get killed. He handed her something, a small pin with the Iron Wolf insignia. Team tradition. Everyone gets one after their first combat deployment. You're getting yours early, but you've earned it. Ava pinned it to her vest next to her name tape. It felt like it weighed nothing and everything at the same time. Don't make me regret vouching for you, Crawford added, but he was smiling. The helicopter ride was brutal, low and fast, following terrain contours to avoid radar, every bump and shift threatening to send Ava's stomach into her throat. She sat between Chen and Webb, their faces illuminated by the green glow of chem lights. Nobody talked. There was nothing to say that hadn't already been said 100 times in 100 other helicopters heading into 100 other combat zones. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. 2 minutes. Everyone check their weapons one last time. Crawford gave hand signals, the same ones they'd practiced endlessly, the universal language of violence that transcended words. The helicopter flared, hovering 3 feet off the ground. They jumped out into knee-high grass, the rotor wash flattening everything around them. The Black Hawk was gone before Ava's boots hit the dirt, disappearing into the night like it had never been there. Silence. Just the wind and her own breathing and the sound of 12 people trying to move quietly through hostile territory. Crawford took point, navigating by GPS and night vision. The valley was darker than Ava had expected, the moon hidden behind clouds, the stars obscured. She moved in the middle of the formation, her rifle up, scanning sectors, trying to remember everything she'd been taught about patrol movement. They'd covered maybe half a kilometer when Crawford raised his fist. Everyone froze. Voices ahead, speaking Pashto, getting closer. Crawford made a signal enemy patrol 4 individuals moving perpendicular to their position. If the patrol maintained their course, they'd pass within 50 meters, close enough to see, close enough to hear. The team melted into the terrain, becoming invisible. Ava pressed herself flat behind a small rise, controlling her breathing, willing her heartbeat to slow. Through her night vision, she could see the patrol, 4 men with rifles walking casually, talking and laughing about something. Probably local militia doing a routine sweep. They passed within 30 meters. So close Ava could smell cigarette smoke. Then they were gone, their voices fading into the distance. Crawford waited another 3 minutes before moving again. Nobody breathed easier. That was just the first close call. There would be more. The eastern ridge was steeper than the satellite images suggested. Ava climbed in silence, using her rifle as a balance point, testing each handhold before committing her weight. Below, the assault team was moving into position around the compound. She could see them on her night vision thermal signatures, moving with purpose and precision. She reached her overwatch position and set up quickly. Rifle bipod deployed, spare magazines within easy reach, range card prepared with distances to key points around the compound. Through her scope, the compound jumped into focus. 2 guards at the main gate, both smoking. Lights on in one building, probably where they were holding Chen. A truck parked in the courtyard with what looked like a mounted machine gun. "Overwatch in position," she whispered into her radio. "Copy," Crawford responded. "We're moving to breach point. Stand by." Ava watched the assault team approach the compound's north wall. They moved like shadows, utterly silent. Rodriguez, still recovering, but insisting he was fit for duty, was with them, his rifle up, despite Sullivan's protests. The team reached the wall. Chen pulled out a small explosive charge, placed it on the wall with the care of a surgeon. Everyone stepped back. The explosion was quieter than Ava expected, more of a thump than a boom. But it was enough. A section of wall collapsed, and the assault team poured through. That's when everything went wrong. The lights in every building blazed on simultaneously. Fighters appeared on rooftops and windows, behind cover positions that had been prepared in advance. The mounted machine gun in the courtyard opened up tracers, cutting through the darkness. It was a trap. They'd known the team was coming. "Contact! We're taking heavy fire." Crawford's voice strained but controlled. Multiple hostiles prepared positions. Ava started shooting. The guards at the gate first, then the rooftop positions. She worked systematically, finding targets through her scope, compensating for distance and wind, squeezing the trigger with mechanical precision. But there were too many. For every fighter she dropped, 2 more appeared. The assault team was pinned in the courtyard, unable to advance or retreat. The machine gun was chewing up their cover, sending stone chips flying. "Overwatch, we need that machine gun silenced now." Ava shifted her aim to the gunner. He was protected by a metal shield, only his head and shoulders visible. A difficult shot at 800 meters in darkness, but it was the only shot that mattered. She exhaled slowly, found her natural pause between heartbeats, squeezed. The gunner slumped forward over his weapon, but someone else immediately took his place, continued firing. Ava shot him 2, then a 3rd, then a 4th. They kept coming, kept feeding themselves into her scope like they had an endless supply of men willing to die. "Carter, we need an exit," Hansen shouted over the radio. "Can you see a way out?" Ava scanned the compound. The assault team was trapped in the northeast corner, taking fire from 3 directions. The only possible exit was through a narrow alley on the east side, but it was covered by fighters in a second-story window. "East alley, but you've got 2 shooters in the window above it. Give me 5 seconds. She didn't wait for confirmation. Shifted her aim to the window, fired twice in rapid succession. Both fighters dropped. "Go now." The assault team moved Crawford, laying down covering fire while the others sprinted for the alley. Rodriguez was limping, his wound from the previous mission clearly bothering him, but he kept pace. They almost made it. A fighter appeared from a doorway, aimed an RPG directly at the fleeing team. Ava saw him, swung her rifle, fired, but she was a fraction of a second too slow. The RPG launched. The explosion threw 3 members of the assault team to the ground. Through her scope, Ava watched in horror as Crawford, Webb, and Rodriguez went down in a tangle of limbs and debris. "Man down, multiple casualties!" Chen's voice panicked. Sullivan was already moving, dragging Rodriguez toward cover. Hansen grabbed Webb. But Crawford wasn't moving. He was just lying there motionless, and nobody could reach him because the RPG shooter had reloaded and was aiming again. Ava fired. The shooter dropped, but another one appeared. She shot him too, and another, and another. She was burning through ammunition, her shoulder aching from recoil, her breathing ragged. "Sullivan, how bad?" Hansen demanded. "Rodriguez is critical. Webb's unconscious but breathing. Crawford, I can't reach Crawford to assess. Carter, can you provide covering fire so we can get to him?" Ava looked at her ammunition. 4 magazines left, maybe 60 rounds total. Not enough to suppress an entire compound full of fighters. "Negative, I don't have enough ammo." A pause, then Hansen, his voice tight with emotion. "Then we have to leave him." "Bullshit," Webb groaned, regaining consciousness. "Nobody gets left behind. We don't have a choice. If we stay here, we all die." Ava watched through her scope as they argued, as precious seconds ticked away as Crawford lay exposed in the courtyard. She could see his chest moving. He was alive, just unconscious. But he wouldn't be alive for long. She made a decision. "I'm going down there." "What negative, Carter? You stay in position. Crawford's not dying because I sat on a hill and watched." Ava grabbed her remaining magazines, her sidearm a smoke grenade from her pack. "Give me 2 minutes. If I'm not back with him by then, leave us both." "Carter, that's suicide." She was already moving, scrambling down the ridge at a reckless pace, sliding on loose scree, using her rifle as a brake. Her injured ribs screamed in protest, but she ignored them, focused only on getting down, getting to Crawford, getting him out. She hit the bottom of the ridge and sprinted toward the compound. Bullets kicked up dirt around her feet. She pulled the smoke grenade, threw it ahead of her, used the billowing cloud as cover. The smoke was thick, acrid, blinding. She couldn't see 3 feet in any direction. Navigated by memory and instinct, by the mental map she'd built from her overwatch position. The courtyard should be ahead. Crawford should be to her left. The assault team's last position should be. She tripped over Crawford's body, went down hard. Rolled, came up with her rifle ready, but nobody was shooting at her. The smoke was too thick. They couldn't see her any better than she could see them. Crawford was bleeding from his head, his helmet cracked. His eyes were half open but unfocused. Ava grabbed his gear harness and pulled, straining against his dead weight. He had to weigh 220, maybe more. She was 5'6" and 130 pounds, soaking wet. She pulled anyway. Dragged him 3 feet, then 3 more. Then 3 more. Her back was on fire. Her arms felt like they were going to tear out of their sockets. The smoke was starting to clear, and she could hear voices getting closer. A fighter emerged from the smoke, his AK-47 coming up. Ava dropped Crawford, drew her sidearm, fired 3 times center mass. The man went down, and 2 more appeared. She shot them both, then turned and kept dragging Crawford. The smoke was almost gone now. She was completely exposed. "Carter incoming from your 6. She spun, still holding Crawford with one hand, firing her pistol with the other. Dropped one attacker, missed the second. He was raising his rifle when his head snapped back. Webb had shot him from the alley. "Move, Lieutenant. We've got you covered." Ava dragged Crawford the last 20 feet to the alley. Hands grabbed him, pulled him into cover. Sullivan immediately started working on him, checking vitals, applying pressure to the head wound. "He's alive. Concussion, possible skull fracture. We need to get him out now." "Everyone move," Hansen ordered. "Chen Rodriguez, take point. Webb, you're with me carrying Crawford. Carter and Sullivan provide rear security. Go, go, go." They moved through the alley at a stumbling run, Crawford's unconscious body hanging between Hansen and Webb. Rodriguez was barely staying on his feet, his face gray with pain. Chen supported him with one arm while wielding his rifle with the other. Behind them, the fighters were organizing, pursuing. Ava could hear their shouts, could hear the sound of vehicles starting up. "Carter, how many are following?" She risked a glance back. "At least 20 on foot, 2 vehicles. Can you slow them down?" "I can try." She stopped at the alley's exit, took a knee, aimed back the way they'd come. When the first fighters appeared, she opened fire with her pistol, dropping 2 before the rest scattered for cover. It bought them maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds they desperately needed. The extraction point was half a kilometer away. Half a kilometer of open ground with no cover. If the vehicles caught them before they reached it, they were dead. Ava ran, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. Ahead, she could see the rest of the team, could see Rodriguez collapse and Chen dragging him up again. could see Crawford's blood leaving a trail in the dirt. The helicopters appeared over the ridge, two Blackhawks coming in low and fast. The door gunners opened up with their miniguns, raking the pursuing vehicles. One truck exploded. The other veered off its driver, dead or panicked. The lead helicopter touched down, rotors still spinning. The team piled in, throwing Crawford's limp form inside everyone else scrambling after. Ava was the last one in, still firing her pistol at the pursuing fighters until the magazine ran dry. The helicopter lifted off just as an RPG screamed past, missing by inches. The pilot banked hard, gained altitude, and suddenly they were above the killing zone, climbing towards safety and the stars. Sullivan worked on Crawford with focused intensity, his hands moving with the precision of long practice. Rodriguez was on oxygen, Chen holding the mask over his face. Webb sat with his head in his hands, blood running from a cut on his forehead. "Is Crawford going to make it?" Hansen asked quietly. "I don't know," Sullivan admitted. "His skull might be fractured. He needs surgery I can't do here." Ava sat by the open door, watching the valley recede below them. They'd gone in to rescue a CIA asset and hadn't even gotten close to him. They'd walked into a trap, lost operational effectiveness, barely escaped with their lives. By any objective measure, the mission was a failure. But they were alive. All of them were alive. Crawford's eyes opened, unfocused and confused. What happened?" "You got blown up, Chief," Webb said, managing a weak smile. "Again. Did we get Chen the asset?" Silence. Nobody wanted to answer. "We didn't, did we?" Crawford tried to sit up, groaned, laid back down. "Damn it." "We'll go back," Hansen said. "Once you're stable, once we regroup, we'll go back and finish the job. They'll kill him before we can mount another operation." "Maybe, but we're not going to compound one failure with another. We lost this round. It happens." Crawford's eyes found Ava. "You came down from your position. You pulled me out." "Yes, Chief? I told you to stay put, maintain overwatch. You also told me to be ready to make hard decisions without waiting for orders." Crawford almost smiled. "Touché." His eyes closed again. "Hell of a first official mission, Carter." "Yeah, hell of a first mission." The base hospital took Crawford immediately into surgery. Rodriguez went into intensive care. Webb refused treatment until Sullivan literally threatened to sedate him. The rest of the team sat in the waiting area, still in their bloody gear, too wired to sleep. Reeves appeared 3 hours later. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. "Crawford's in stable condition. Skull fracture, but the surgeons think he'll make a full recovery. Rodriguez is stable too. They're both lucky to be alive." "What about the asset?" Hansen asked. "Dead. They executed him 2 hours ago and posted the video online." Reeves sat down heavily. "JSOC wants a full after-action report by tomorrow. They want to know how we walked into a prepared ambush, how we lost 2 men and failed the mission objective." "It was good intelligence," Chen protested. "Everything checked out, which means either we have a leak or the enemy is getting better at deception. Either option is bad." Reeves looked at each of them in turn. "I want everyone to write up their perspective on what happened. What went wrong, what went right, what we can learn. We don't get to fail without understanding why." He stood to leave, then paused. "Carter, a word." Ava followed him into the hallway, her body aching, her mind exhausted. "You disobeyed orders again," Reeves said flatly. "You abandoned your overwatch position without authorization." "Yes, sir." "You put yourself in unnecessary danger. You could have been killed." "Yes, sir." "And you saved Crawford's life in the process. Probably saved the whole team, because without him they would have tried to hold their position too long and gotten overrun." Reeves shook his head. "I don't know whether to promote you or court-martial you. I'll take whichever you think is appropriate, sir. What I think is appropriate is that you start trusting your team to handle situations without you throwing yourself into danger every single time." He softened slightly. "You're brave, Carter. Maybe too brave. Courage is good. Recklessness gets people killed. Learn the difference." "I will, sir." Reeves walked away, leaving Ava alone in the fluorescent-lit hallway. Through a window, she could see the sun rising over the mountains, painting them orange and gold. Another day in Afghanistan, another day of war. She was so tired she could barely stand. But they were alive. Her team was alive. And tomorrow they'd figure out how to finish what they'd started. Ava didn't sleep. She sat in the empty team room, her father's letter spread on the table in front of her, reading it for the 1,000th time. The words blurred together, exhaustion making her eyes unfocused, but she kept reading anyway. Anything to avoid closing her eyes and seeing Crawford lying motionless in that courtyard, seeing the RPG shooter aiming at her teammates, seeing the blood trail Rodriguez left behind. The door opened. Webb limped in his head, wrapped in bandages, moving like every step hurt. He poured himself coffee from the pot that had been sitting there for 6 hours, took a sip, grimaced. Tastes like battery acid. Yeah. Webb sat down across from her, noticed the letter. From home. My father, he wrote it before his last deployment. Never came back. Marine. Sniper. Fallujah 2004. Took a round from a rooftop he'd already cleared. Someone had doubled back, waited for him. Ava folded the letter carefully. He always told me being a sniper wasn't about killing people. It was about protecting the ones you care about from a distance, making sure they get home safe. He was right. Webb drank more terrible coffee. That's what you did tonight. Protected us from a distance. Then when the distance didn't matter anymore, you came and got us anyway. Crawford almost died. But he didn't because of you. Webb set down his cup. You know what the difference is between a good operator and a great one? Good operators follow the plan. Great operators know when to abandon the plan and do what needs to be done. You're learning that faster than anyone I've ever seen. Doesn't feel like it. Feels like I'm barely keeping up. That's because you're measuring yourself against guys who've been doing this for 10 years. Give yourself some credit, LT. You've been on the team for 4 days, and you've already saved more lives than most operators do in their entire career. The door opened again. Sullivan looking exhausted, still wearing his blood-stained uniform. Crawford's out of surgery. Doctor says he'll make a full recovery, but he's going to be on medical leave for at least 6 weeks. Webb swore quietly. 6 weeks. That's our team leader gone for 6 weeks. Who's going to run operations? Reeves is bringing in someone from another unit. Temporary assignment until Crawford's back. Sullivan poured himself coffee, took one sip, dumped it in the sink. Jesus, who made this? It was here when I got here, Webb said defensively. When did you get here? 6 hours ago. Sullivan made a fresh pot while they sat in silence. Outside the base was waking up engines, starting voices calling out the mechanical sounds of a war machine preparing for another day. There's something else, Sullivan said, measuring coffee grounds with the precision he brought to everything. Intel traced the leak, the reason they knew we were coming. Ava sat up straighter. Who? One of the local interpreters. Guy named Rashid, who's been working with us for 8 months. Turns out he's been feeding information to the Zarqawi network the whole time. They arrested him 2 hours ago. How much did he know? Webb asked. Everything. Every mission we've run, every compound we've hit, every operator on the team. Names, tactics, capabilities. They know all of it. Sullivan started the coffee maker, watched it drip. Reeves is shutting down operations for 72 hours while we do a complete security review. No missions, no deployments, nothing until we're sure there aren't any other compromises. What about the CIA asset they executed, Chen? What about him? He's dead. Mission failed. We move on. Sullivan's voice was flat, emotionless, but Ava could see the tension in his shoulders. That's the job. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. All we can do is learn from it and try not to make the same mistakes twice. The fresh coffee finished brewing. Sullivan poured 3 cups, handed them around. It was barely drinkable, but at least it was hot. I heard Reeves chewed you out again, Webb said to Ava. What did he say this time? That I'm too brave. That courage and recklessness aren't the same thing. He's not wrong, but he also knows that what you did saved lives. He just can't say it officially because then he'd have to admit his plan had failed and needed someone to improvise. Webb drank his coffee. Reeves is a good commander. He cares about results. You get results, he'll back you, even if he yells at you first. Chen walked in, moving slowly, his demolitions gear still strapped to his vest. He looked at the 3 of them, looked at the coffee pot, poured himself a cup without saying anything. You look like hell, Sullivan observed. Feel worse. Chen sat down, cradled his coffee like it was precious. I keep thinking about that interpreter. Rashid, I worked with him dozens of times, trusted him. He seemed like a good guy, you know, always smiling, always helpful, and the whole time he was selling us out. That's the game, Webb said. Never know who's really on your side until they prove it one way or the other. Yeah, but how do you prove it? How do you know who to trust? Ava thought about that. About Reeves who doubted her but gave her a chance. About Crawford who'd tested her but vouched for her. About Martinez who'd stayed when he didn't have to. About trust being earned through actions, not words. You don't know, she said finally. You just have to decide whether you're going to let fear of betrayal stop you from trusting anyone at all. And if you do that, they've already won. Chen looked at her for a long moment. That's pretty philosophical for 600 hours. Sleep deprivation makes me deep. They sat there drinking bad coffee and not talking about the mission failure, not talking about Crawford's injury, not talking about the executed CIA asset whose name would be added to a classified memorial somewhere nobody would ever see it, just existing together in the quiet space between one crisis and the next. Hansen appeared in the doorway. Reeves wants everyone in the briefing room. Now. The team gathered what was left of it. Crawford was in surgery. Rodriguez was in intensive care. But everyone else was there exhausted and battered, but present. Reeves stood at the front with a man Ava had never seen before, mid-40s, built like a brick wall with cold blue eyes that seemed to evaluate and dismiss everyone simultaneously. This is Master Chief Derek Stone, Reeves announced. He's from DevGru Gold Squadron. He'll be acting team leader while Crawford recovers. Master Chief, your team. Stone stepped forward. I've read your files. I've reviewed the after-action reports from your last 2 missions, and I'm not impressed. His voice was harsh, uncompromising. You walked into an ambush because you trusted compromised intelligence. You lost operational security because you didn't properly vet your local assets. You failed to extract your target and barely made it out alive. That's not the performance I expect from a unit with Iron Wolf's reputation. Webb bristled. With respect, Master Chief, we did the best we could with the intel we had. Your best wasn't good enough. People died because of it. Stone's eyes swept across them. I don't care about your excuses. I don't care about your justifications. I care about results, and right now your results are unacceptable. Ava felt anger rising in her chest. They'd fought hard, sacrificed everything, saved each other's lives. And this stranger was standing here telling them they weren't good enough. We have a new mission, Stone continued. New target, new intelligence, this time from a source we've triple verified. Khalid Zarqawi himself, the leader of the network that's been causing us so much trouble. We have a 24-hour window to take him down before he relocates. We're going in tonight. Hansen spoke up. Master Chief, half our team is in the hospital. We're not at full operational capacity. Then we'll make do with what we have. Hansen, you'll lead the assault element. Webb and Chen, you're with him. Sullivan, you're on medical. Carter, your primary overwatch again. Stone pulled up a satellite image. The target is a compound 30 kilometers north. Similar layout to your last mission, but this time we know what we're walking into. This time we do it right. He detailed the plan insertion breach points, extraction routes, contingencies. It was thorough, professional, exactly what Ava would expect from a DevGru operator. But there was something cold about it, something mechanical, like they were chess pieces being moved around a board instead of people risking their lives. When the briefing ended, Ava found herself in the armory again, cleaning weapons that didn't need cleaning. Stone appeared in the doorway, watched her for a moment. Carter, right, the female sniper everyone's talking about. Yes, Master Chief. I read about what you did on your last 2 missions. Disobeying orders, abandoning your position, engaging enemy forces without authorization. You got results, but you also got lucky. Luck runs out. I understand, Master Chief. Do you, because from where I stand, you're a liability. You don't follow orders. You make emotional decisions. You put yourself and others at risk because you're trying to prove something. Stone stepped closer. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about your need to prove yourself. I care about mission success. And if you can't follow orders, you're going to get someone killed. Probably yourself. Ava met his eyes. I follow orders when they make sense. When they don't, I improvise. That's kept my team alive so far. So far, but tonight you're following my orders. To the letter. No improvisation, no heroics, no going off script. You stay in your overwatch position unless I specifically tell you to move. Clear. Crystal clear, Master Chief. Stone left and Ava went back to cleaning her rifle hands, shaking with suppressed anger. Sullivan appeared, leaned against the doorway. Don't let him get to you. Stone's got a reputation. He's good at what he does, but he's also an asshole who thinks everyone else is incompetent. He's not wrong, though. I have been disobeying orders. You've been making command decisions in the field. That's different. Stone doesn't trust anyone to think for themselves. He wants robots who follow his plan exactly. That works fine when everything goes according to plan, but things never go according to plan. Sullivan sat down on a workbench. Just do your job tonight. Prove him wrong by getting results. That's the only language guys like him understand. At 2100 hours, they loaded into the helicopters. The mood was different this time, tense, uncertain, everyone on edge. Without Crawford's steady leadership, without Rodriguez's humor, the team felt incomplete. And Stone's cold professionalism did nothing to fill that gap. The flight was rough, buffeted by winds that made the helicopter pitch and yaw. Ava's stomach churned, but she kept her breathing steady, focused on the mission ahead. Through the open door, she could see the mountains silhouetted against the stars, could see the distant lights of villages scattered across the valley. 5 minutes, the pilot announced. Stone gave hand signals. Everyone checked their weapons. The helicopter descended, and Ava could see the compound exactly as the intel had described. 3 buildings, high walls, guards at the entrance. But something felt wrong. She couldn't put her finger on it, but something about the scene below made the hair on her neck stand up. They jumped out the helicopter, disappearing immediately. The team moved toward the ridge line where Ava would set up her overwatch position. They'd covered maybe 200 meters when Sullivan's voice came over the radio, urgent and quiet. Hold position. I've got movement to our east. Multiple contacts. Everyone froze. Through her night vision, Ava could see what Sullivan was seeing, a patrol of at least 8 fighters moving perpendicular to their position, heading directly toward them. Stone's voice, everyone down, let them pass. But the patrol wasn't passing. They were moving with purpose, like they knew exactly where to look. Like they'd been told where the team would be. Master Chief, they're coming right at us, Hansen whispered. They know we're here. Impossible. This mission is classified. Tell that to them. The patrol was 100 meters away now, their flashlights sweeping the terrain. 75 meters. 50. Stone made a decision. Weapons free. Take them down quietly. The team opened fire with suppressed weapons. Ava dropped 2 fighters with her rifle, watched the others scatter and take cover. But they were already calling for backup, their voices carrying across the valley. Within seconds, lights started coming on in the compound. Vehicles started moving. Mission compromised, Stone said flatly. All elements abort and return to extract point. Negative, Hansen's voice. If we abort, they'll know we were coming for Zarqawi. He'll disappear and we'll never find him again. We need to finish this. I said abort, that's an order. With respect, Master Chief, that's the wrong call. We're already compromised. We might as well complete the mission. I don't care what you think. I'm in command, and I'm ordering you to. The radio erupted with gunfire and shouting. Through her night vision, Ava saw the compound's main gate open and vehicles pour out, at least 6 of them, all heading toward their position. Contact multiple vehicles approaching from the compound, Stone swore. Everyone moved to the secondary extract point. Carter, provide covering fire. Ava set up quickly, her rifle bipod, deployed her scope, trained on the approaching vehicles. She fired at the lead truck, aiming for the driver. Missed, fired again. The windshield shattered, but the truck kept coming. She shifted to the second vehicle, put 3 rounds through the engine block. It ground to a halt, smoke pouring from under the hood. But the others kept coming, and fighters were dismounting, spreading out, moving with tactical precision. Carter, displace. They've got your position. She packed up her rifle and ran, bullets kicking up dirt around her feet. Made it 20 meters before an explosion threw her forward. She hit the ground hard, tasted blood, felt something sharp in her leg. A piece of shrapnel from a grenade buried deep in her thigh. She forced herself up, limping, bleeding her legs, screaming with every step. Ahead, she could see the team moving towards the secondary extract point, could hear Stone barking orders over the radio. Behind her, the fighters were closing in. She turned, fired her rifle one-handed while hobbling backward. Dropped one pursuer, then another, then her rifle clicked empty. No time to reload. She drew her sidearm, kept moving, kept firing. Her leg gave out and she went down. Got up, went down again. Sullivan appeared out of nowhere, grabbed her, pulled her up. "I've got you, Lieutenant. Move." Together, they stumbled toward the extract point, Sullivan half carrying her, both of them firing at the pursuing fighters. Chen appeared on their flank, his rifle chattering on full auto, laying down covering fire. They made it to the extract point, a clearing where the helicopters were supposed to land, but the clearing was empty. No helicopters, no extraction. "Where are they?" Webb demanded. Stone was on the radio. "Extract birds. What's your position?" "We're taking heavy ground fire. We can't land. The LZ is too hot." "Then make it not hot. We need immediate extraction." "Negative. We'd be shot down before we touch ground. You need to move to alternate LZ. Delta 2 clicks north. 2 kilometers. With fighters right behind them with Ava unable to walk properly with ammunition running low. It might as well have been 200 kilometers. "Everyone move," Stone ordered. "Leapfrog formation. Alternate providing cover. Go, go, go." They ran through the darkness, trading places, two providing cover while the others moved, then switching. Ava could barely keep up her wounded leg, dragging Sullivan, practically carrying her. Every step sent fresh waves of agony through her body, but she bit down on it, focused on moving forward, on not being the reason they all died. The fighters behind them were relentless, pressing hard, getting closer. Chen dropped back to slow them down, his rifle firing in controlled bursts. Webb joined him, both of them holding a position while the others gained distance. "We can't keep this up," Webb shouted. "We're going to run out of ammunition before we reach the LZ." Stone didn't respond, just kept moving, kept leading them north. Ava could see the calculation in his eyes. They weren't all getting to make it. Someone was going to have to stay behind to sacrifice themselves so the others could escape. And she knew without being told that Stone had already decided who that someone would be. The weakest link. The one slowing everyone down. Her. "Master Chief," Ava said, breathing hard. "I can hold a position, buy you time to get clear." "Negative. We don't leave people behind. You left the CIA asset behind. You were ready to abort the mission and leave Zarqawi alive. So don't give me that line about not leaving people behind." Ava stopped moving, pulled away from Sullivan. "I'm the logical choice. I'm wounded. I'm slowing you down. Let me do something useful." Stone looked at her, and for a moment his cold exterior cracked. She saw doubt there, saw the weight of command crushing down on him. "We're not leaving you." "Then we all die. Those are the options." Ava checked her ammunition. "I've got maybe 40 rounds left. That'll hold them for 3, maybe 4 minutes. Long enough for you to reach the LZ and get extracted." "Carter, no." Sullivan's voice firm. "We're a team. We don't sacrifice our own." "You're not sacrificing me. I'm volunteering. There's a difference." Ava looked at each of them. Hanson, Webb, Chen, Sullivan, even Stone. "Crawford came back for me when I was pinned down. I went back for him when he was wounded. That's what we do. We protect each other. And right now, the best way I can protect you is by staying here." Hanson stepped forward. "If anyone stays, it should be me. I'm the XO. That's my responsibility. With respect, sir, you're needed to lead the team if something happens to Master Chief. I'm just a sniper. I'm replaceable." "Bullshit," Webb said. "You're not replaceable. You're Iron Wolf. You're one of us." The words hit harder than any bullet. One of us. After everything, after all the doubt and testing and proving herself, they actually meant it. "Which is why I'm doing this," Ava said quietly. "Because that's what Iron Wolf does. We protect our teammates, no matter what." Stone made the call. "Everyone else moves to the LZ. Carter, you hold for 4 minutes, then you disengage and follow." "That's an order." "Yes, Master Chief." They moved out, leaving her alone in the darkness with her rifle and her pain and the sound of fighters getting closer. Ava found a good position, a small depression with decent cover and clear fields of fire. She loaded her last magazine, settled in and waited. The fighters came cautiously, having learned respect for her marksmanship. She let them get close enough that every shot would count. Then she opened fire. First shot dropped the point man. Second shot took the one behind him. The rest scattered, returning fire, but she'd already shifted position. Fired again, dropped another. Moved again. She worked systematically, professionally, like this was just another training exercise. Except the bullets were real. The blood was real, and she was probably going to die here. 3 minutes gone. Time to move. She started crawling backward using every bit of cover she could find. Her leg was on fire, her vision swimming, but she kept moving. Behind her, she could hear the helicopters. They'd reached the LZ they were extracting. A fighter appeared to her left. She shot him. Another to her right. Shot him too. Her pistol slide locked back empty. No more ammunition. She pulled her knife, the only weapon she had left. A fighter rushed her position. She met him with the blade, years of close quarters combat training taking over. The fight was brief and brutal. He went down and she picked up his AK-47, checked the magazine. Half full, 20 rounds maybe. She kept moving, firing short bursts at any target that presented itself. The helicopter sounds were fading, they were leaving, getting clear. She'd done her job, bought them the time they needed. Now she just had to survive. The fighters were everywhere, closing in from multiple directions. She was surrounded, outnumbered, wounded, and running on empty. This was it. This was how it ended. Then the night lit up with tracer fire from above. A helicopter not retreating, but coming back, its door guns hammering at the fighters around her position. The pilot's voice on the radio, "Carter, pop smoke. We're coming in hot." She pulled her last smoke grenade through it. Orange smoke billowed into the night. The helicopter descended into a storm of ground fire bullets pinging off its armor. It touched down for maybe 3 seconds. Sullivan was in the door reaching out. "Move, Lieutenant, now." Ava ran, her wounded leg barely functioning, every step agony. Sullivan grabbed her, pulled her aboard. The helicopter lifted immediately, climbing hard, and she watched the ground fall away, watched the fighters shooting uselessly at them as they climbed out of range. She'd made it. Somehow, impossibly, she'd made it. Stone was there, his cold exterior completely gone. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Don't ever do it again." "Yes, Master Chief. I mean it. You're too valuable to throw away on suicide stands." He paused. "Even if it did save all our lives." Ava slumped against the helicopter's wall, exhaustion crashing over her. Sullivan was already working on her leg, pulling out the shrapnel, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. "You're lucky," he said. "Missed the femoral artery by maybe 2 millimeters. Any closer and you'd have bled out in minutes." Story of my life. Lucky. Hansen sat across from her. "The mission was a failure. We didn't get Zarqawi, lost operational security again, barely made it out alive. But you know what? I don't care. Everyone on this helicopter is alive because you were willing to stay behind. That's worth more than any mission objective." He extended his hand. "Thank you, Lieutenant." She shook at her grip, weak but sincere. The helicopter flew through the darkness, carrying them back to base, back to safety, back to fight another day. And as Ava sat there bleeding and exhausted and barely conscious, she felt something she hadn't felt since arriving in Afghanistan. She felt like she belonged. The base hospital was becoming Ava's second home. 3 missions, 3 trips to the emergency room. Sullivan joked that she should just set up a cot in the recovery ward and save everyone time. "Hold still," he muttered, stitching the shrapnel wound in her thigh with the same careful precision he brought to everything. "This is going to leave a scar. Add it to the collection." Crawford appeared in the doorway, his head still wrapped in bandages, but his eyes clear and focused. He'd discharged himself from the hospital against doctor's orders, claiming he'd rather die doing his job than rot in a bed. "Heard you played hero again, Carter." "Just doing my job, Chief." "Your job is sniper, not sacrificial lamb. We need to have a serious conversation about your definition of Overwatch." Crawford pulled up a chair, moved slowly like everything hurt. "Stone told me what happened. Said you volunteered to stay behind so the team could escape. It was the logical choice. It was a suicide mission. There's a difference between being brave and being stupid." Crawford's expression softened. "But it worked. Everyone made it out alive, so I can't be too angry." Sullivan finished the last-stitch bandage the wound. "You're going to be on light duty for at least a week. No running, no heavy lifting. Definitely no more heroic last stands. Define light duty. Paperwork, equipment maintenance, maybe some classroom instruction. Basically anything that doesn't involve getting shot at." Ava groaned. "I'd rather take my chances with the Taliban." "Too bad. Doctor's orders." Sullivan packed up his medical kit. "Crawford, you shouldn't be out of bed either. You had brain surgery 48 hours ago." "And I feel fine. Stop mother-henning me." It's called being a medic. If you two would stop trying to get yourselves killed, I could actually do my job properly." He left muttering about stubborn operators and death wishes. Crawford waited until he was gone before speaking again. "Reeves wants to see you, both of us actually. He's in his office now." They walked through the compound together, Crawford moving carefully, Ava limping. A pair of wounded warriors heading to face their commander. Other personnel gave them space, recognizing the Iron Wolf patch, knowing what it meant. Reeves sat behind his desk with 2 files open in front of him. He looked up when they entered, gestured for them to sit. "How are you both feeling?" "Like we got blown up," Crawford said. "So pretty normal." "Good, because we have a problem." Reeves turned his monitor around, showed them a video. Grainy footage from a cell phone showing the compound where they'd attempted to rescue the CIA asset, showing the assault team pinned down, showing Ava's covering fire from the ridge. The video quality was poor, but the implication was clear. This went online 6 hours ago, posted by the Zarqawi network. They're using it as propaganda, showing how they defeated an American special operations team. Reeves paused the video. "They know who we are. They know our tactics, and they're specifically calling out Iron Wolf by name." Crawford leaned forward. "How did they get this footage?" "Camera hidden in this compound. They've been recording everything, documenting every mission we've run against them. They know our insertion patterns, our extraction procedures, our preferred tactics. Everything." Reeves closed the video. "JSOC is shutting us down. Effective immediately, Iron Wolf is being pulled from active operations pending a full security review." "For how long?" Ava asked. "Indefinitely. Indefinitely. Could be weeks, could be months, until we figure out how they're getting our information and plug the leak." Reeves stood up, walked to the window. "There's more. The interpreter we arrested, Rashid, he wasn't working alone. We've identified at least 3 other compromised personnel on the base. We're running a full counterintelligence sweep, but it's going to take time." Crawford's jaw tightened. "What about Zarqawi? He's still out there, still planning attacks. Other units will handle him. Iron Wolf is done for now." Reeves turned to face them. "I'm sending most of the team back to the States for mandatory leave. Rest, recovery time away from the combat zone. You've all earned it." "And what about me?" Ava asked. "You're going with them. 2 weeks leave starting tomorrow. Use the time to heal, to process everything that's happened. When you get back, assuming we get cleared for operations again, you'll resume your position as team sniper." "Sir, I'd rather stay here. Keep training, stay ready." "That's not a request, Lieutenant. It's an order. You've been in the country for less than 2 weeks and you've already been wounded 3 times. You need rest before you burn out completely." Reeves softened slightly. "You've proven yourself. Multiple times. Now prove you're smart enough to take care of yourself when someone tells you to." The transport plane left Bagram the next morning. Ava sat with the rest of Iron Wolf, Crawford, Webb, Chen, Rodriguez in a wheelchair for Sullivan Hansen. Stone had already returned to his unit, leaving them with a grudging nod of respect and a promise that if they ever needed backup, DevGru would answer the call. 2 weeks of freedom, Webb said, stretching out in his seat. "I'm going to sleep for 3 days straight, eat real food, and not think about Afghanistan at all." "You'll be bored in 48 hours, Chen predicted. "We always are." "Speak for yourself. I'm going to enjoy every second of not being shot at." Rodriguez looked out the window at the mountains receding below. "You think they'll really clear us to go back?" "Eventually," Crawford said. "JSOC doesn't bench their best units permanently. They'll figure out the security issues, make some changes, and send us back out. Probably just in time for us to be fully healed and ready to get injured again." "The circle of life," Sullivan said dryly. Ava didn't join the conversation. She was thinking about the video about the Zarqawi network, knowing their tactics about how many missions had been compromised before they'd even started. How many close calls had actually been carefully planned ambushes. Crawford noticed her silence. "You okay, Carter?" "Just thinking about the leaks about how long they've been watching us. How many times we could have been killed if they'd played their hand differently. That's the job. We operate in the dark, they operate in the dark, and sometimes the dark swallows people. All we can do is keep moving forward." Crawford shifted in his seat, winced. "You did good out there, Lieutenant. Better than good. You saved lives multiple times in situations that would have broken most people. I'm proud to have you on my team." "Thanks, Chief. But if you volunteer for one more suicide mission, I'm going to shoot you myself. Just so we're clear. Crystal clear. The plane landed at Ramstein Air Base in Germany for refueling. They had 6 hours before the next leg to the States, so the team scattered some to the PX, some to the dining facility, some just to walk on ground that wasn't actively trying to kill them. Ava found herself in the base chapel, a quiet space with wooden pews and stained glass windows that filtered the afternoon light into colors. She wasn't particularly religious, but her father had been, and sometimes she came to places like this just to feel closer to him. She sat in the back pew, pulled out his letter, read it again. Your dad, she looked up. Hansen stood in the aisle, his hands in his pockets. Yeah, he wrote this before his last deployment. It's the only thing I have left of him besides his rifle. Hansen sat down next to her, kept a respectful distance. My father was Army, died in Panama in '89 during Just Cause. I was 5 years old, barely remember him except through stories other people tell. I'm sorry. Don't be, he died doing what he believed in. That's more than most people get. Hansen was quiet for a moment. I wanted to ask you something. Why'd you join really? Not the official answer you give in interviews, but the real reason. Ava folded the letter carefully, because my father told me I could be something extraordinary if I was willing to pay the price. And I wanted to know if he was right, if I had what it takes to do what he did. And do you? I don't know. Some days I think yes. Other days I think I'm just lucky and eventually my luck will run out. She looked at Hansen. Why'd you join? To prove I wasn't my father. To prove I could do this job and survive it, come home to my family. To break the cycle of dead fathers and fatherless sons. Hansen smiled sadly. Hasn't worked out so well. I've been deployed more than I've been home. My kids barely know me. My wife has stopped asking when I'm coming back because she knows I'll just leave again. Then why do you keep doing it? Because guys like Zarqawi don't stop being dangerous just because I want to be home for my daughter's birthday. Someone has to stand between the darkness and the people who can't defend themselves. Might as well be me. He stood up. For what it's worth, your father was right. You are extraordinary, not because of your shooting or your tactics, but because you genuinely care about the people you serve with. That's rarer than you think. He left her alone in the chapel with her thoughts and her father's words and the weight of everything she'd seen and done in the past 2 weeks. The flight to the States was long and uncomfortable. Ava slept in fits and starts, her dreams filled with gunfire and explosions, and Crawford lying motionless in a courtyard. She woke up gasping, disoriented, until Sullivan's calm voice reminded her where she was. Easy, Lieutenant. Just dreams. You're safe. But she didn't feel safe. She felt like the war had followed her onto the plane, into her head, into every quiet moment. They landed at Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington, D.C. There was a brief ceremony, some officers shaking their hands and thanking them for their service, the usual performance for the cameras. Then they were released, told to report back in 2 weeks, scattered to different parts of the country. Ava took a military hop to Montana, arriving in Billings just as the sun was setting over the mountains. The air was cold and clean and smelled like pine trees instead of diesel fuel and dust. She'd forgotten how quiet it could be, how the silence wasn't threatening but peaceful. She rented a car and drove to her father's grave, a simple headstone in a military cemetery outside Great Falls. She hadn't been here since before deployment, hadn't had time between training and assignments, improving herself. Hey, Dad, she said, sitting on the grass next to his marker. I made it. Joined the SEALs, got assigned to an elite unit, survived my first deployment. You were right about me having steady hands. Use them to save some good men's lives. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out. I also almost got killed about a dozen times. Turns out being brave and being reckless are pretty much the same thing, and I'm really good at both. The team says I need to work on my survival instincts. She smiled. You would have liked them. Crawford reminds me of you, actually. Same stubborn determination, same refusal to quit, even when he probably should. She pulled out his letter, read it one more time, then carefully placed it back in her pocket. I'm not done yet. Got 2 more weeks of leave, then I'm going back. Assuming they clear us for operations, and if they don't, I'll find another way to fight. Because you taught me that some things are worth the sacrifice. Some things are worth standing up for even when it's hard. She stood up, saluted the headstone the way she'd been taught, the way her father had taught her when she was just a kid playing soldier. I love you, Dad, and I'm going to make you proud. I promise. The 2 weeks passed in a blur. Ava visited old friends, went to her favorite diner, hiked the trails she'd run as a teenager with a weighted pack. But everything felt different now. The civilian world seemed distant, unreal, like she was watching it through glass. The concerns people had, traffic bills, relationship drama, felt trivial compared to what she'd experienced. She tried to explain it once to an old friend from high school, but the words wouldn't come. How do you describe the weight of command decisions? The sound of bullets passing inches from your head, the feeling of pulling a wounded teammate from a kill zone while everything around you explodes. You don't. You just smile and nod and pretend everything's fine. On day 13, her phone rang. Crawford's number. Chief Carter, how's leave treating you? Fine, quiet, different. Yeah, it always is. Crawford paused. Listen, I just got a word from Reeves. The security review is complete. They have identified and removed all the compromised personnel. We're cleared to return to operations. When ASAP, they have got a target, high value, time sensitive. They want Iron Wolf back in the game. Another pause. They specifically requested you. Reeves says we need our sniper, and you're the best we've got. Ava felt her heart rate pick up. The civilian world falling away, the warrior emerging. I'll be on the next flight out. Thought you might say that. See you in 48 hours. And Carter, get your head right before you come back. We need you sharp, not distracted. She hung up and immediately started packing. The quiet of Montana, the peace of her father's grave, the normalcy of civilian life, all of it evaporated like morning mist. She was going back to war, back to her team, back to the only place where she truly made sense. 46 hours later, she walked into the Iron Wolf compound at Bagram. The team was already there, geared up and ready. Crawford looked better. His head wound, healed, his eyes sharp. Rodriguez was out of the wheelchair, moving carefully, but moving. Webb, Chen, Sullivan, Hansen, all of them looking at her with expressions that said, welcome home. Glad you could make it, LT, Webb said. Mission brief in 10 minutes. Hope you remember how to shoot. I'll manage. Reeves appeared, gestured for her to follow him to his office. Inside, he pulled up intelligence photos on his computer. Khalid Zarqawi. He's moving locations tonight from his current compound to a new safe house in the mountains. We've got a 4-hour window to intercept him during the transfer. This is our best shot at taking him down. What's my role? Same as always. Overwatch sniper. But this time there's a complication. The transfer route goes through a narrow mountain pass. Limited visibility, difficult terrain, multiple opportunities for ambush. You'll need to be on your A game. I'm ready, sir. Reeves studied her. You've been through a lot in a very short time. Multiple combat operations, multiple injuries, watched teammates nearly die. No one would blame you if you needed more time. With respect, sir, my team needs me. That's all that matters. Spoken like a true Iron Wolf operator. Reeves stood up. Get your gear ready. We insert at 2200 hours. And Carter, don't take any unnecessary risks. We need you alive and functional, not heroic and dead. Understood, sir. The mission brief was concise. The team would insert via helicopter 5 kilometers from the intercept point, move on foot through the mountains, establish positions along the transfer route. When Zarqawi's convoy appeared, they'd hit it hard and fast, disable the vehicles, eliminate security capture, or kill the target. Ava would be positioned on a ridge overlooking the pass, providing overwatch and engaging any threats that emerged. Standard operating procedure for Iron Wolf. Nothing she hadn't done before. Except this time felt different. The stakes were higher. Zarqawi was the architect of multiple attacks, the leader of the network that had nearly killed her entire team. This wasn't just another mission. This was personal. The helicopter insertion went smoothly. The 5-kilometer hike through the mountains was brutal, steep terrain, loose rocks, freezing temperatures at altitude. But the team moved with practiced efficiency, everyone knowing their role, trusting each other completely. Ava reached her overwatch position 90 minutes before the expected convoy arrival. Set up her rifle, checked distances, prepared range cards. Through her scope, she could see the pass below a narrow road carved into the mountainside, barely wide enough for 2 vehicles. Perfect ambush terrain. Overwatch in position, she reported. Copy, Crawford responded. Assault element is set. We're ready when they are. They waited. Minutes stretched into an hour. The cold seeped through Ava's uniform, making her fingers stiff, her breath visible in the night air. She flexed her hands, kept her blood moving, stayed alert. Then headlights in the distance. Contact. 3 vehicles approaching from the south. Probable target convoy. The vehicles moved slowly, cautiously, like they suspected something. 2 SUVs and a technical truck with a mounted gun. Through her scope, Ava could see armed men in each vehicle, could see someone in the middle SUV who might be Zarqawi. The convoy entered the kill zone. Crawford's voice. Assault element, engage on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. The night erupted with gunfire. The assault team opened up from concealed positions, riddling the vehicles with automatic fire. The technical's gunner tried to return fire, but Ava dropped him with a headshot before he could traverse his weapon. The convoy ground to a halt, fighters pouring out of the vehicles, some taking cover, some trying to run. Ava worked systematically, dropping targets with precision. A fighter raising an RPG dead before he could fire. 2 men trying to flank the assault team, both down. A driver attempting to reverse the SUV shot through the windshield. But something was wrong. There were too many fighters, more than intelligence had predicted. And they were fighting with coordinated precision like they'd been expecting this. Crawford, something's off. They're too organized. I see it. Keep providing cover. We're moving to secure the target vehicle. The assault team advanced under Ava's covering fire. She dropped 3 more fighters, then 4. Her ammunition was running low, but she couldn't stop shooting, couldn't let up the pressure. Crawford reached the middle SUV, yanked open the door. Through her scope, Ava saw his body language change, saw him step back. Negative on target. Zarqawi's not here. It's a decoy. The realization hit everyone simultaneously. This was a trap. Again. Ava swung her scope around, scanning for threats when she saw them, at least 30 fighters emerging from concealed positions in the rocks above the convoy. They'd been waiting and had let Iron Wolf commit to the ambush before revealing themselves. Contact, high ground, multiple hostiles, assault team 6 o'clock. The new fighters opened fire, catching the assault team in a crossfire. Crawford and his men dove for cover, pinned between the convoy survivors and the reinforcements. Ava engaged the high ground targets, dropping them as fast as she could acquire them, but there were too many. We're getting hammered here, Webb shouted. We need to disengage. Can't they've got us surrounded? Crawford's voice was strained. Overwatch, we need those high ground positions silenced. Ava fired until her rifle clicked and empty. Loaded her last magazine, kept firing. Each shot counted, each shot bought her team precious seconds. But it wasn't enough. The fighters kept coming, kept pressing, kept closing in. A bullet struck the rock next to her head, showering her with stone chips. They'd spotted her position. More rounds hit around her, forcing her to displace. She rolled away from her rifle, drew her sidearm, low-crawled to a new position. Below, the assault team was fighting for their lives. Chen was down to Sullivan, dragging him to cover. Rodriguez was firing his rifle one-handed while applying pressure to a wound on his arm. Webb and Hansen were back-to-back, surrounded, ammunition running low, and Crawford was trying to coordinate it all, trying to find a way out that didn't exist. Ava made a decision. She keyed her radio. Chief, I've got an idea. You're not going to like it. What? That technical truck. The one with the mounted gun. If I can get to it, I can provide heavy suppressing fire. Give you a window to extract. You're 300 meters away on a ridge. How are you going to get to the truck? Very quickly and with a lot of luck. Carter, that's insane. You have a better plan. Silence, then do it. We'll cover you as best we can. Ava abandoned her sniper rifle, keeping only her sidearm and 1 grenade. Started running down the ridge, half sliding on loose scree, using gravity and momentum and desperation. Bullets chased her, kicking up dirt, but she didn't stop, didn't slow. She hit the bottom of the ridge at a full sprint, zigzagging between rocks, heading for the convoy. A fighter emerged from behind a vehicle and she shot him without breaking stride. Another raised his rifle and she threw her grenade, kept running while the explosion took him out. The technical truck was 50 meters away. 40, 30. She dove behind it just as a burst of automatic fire chewed up the ground where she'd been standing. Came up on the other side, climbed into the bed, grabbed the mounted gun. It was a Russian D SHK belt-fed heavy caliber. She'd trained on one exactly once years ago. Good enough. She swung the weapon toward the high ground positions and opened fire. The DSHK roared, spitting half-inch rounds at a cyclic rate that turned rock and flesh into flying debris. The fighters on the high ground scattered, diving for cover, their coordinated assault breaking apart under the devastating fire. "Go move now," Ava shouted into her radio while continuing to fire. The assault team moved, Crawford leading them in a fighting retreat, laying down fire while maneuvering toward the extraction point. Ava kept the heavy guns singing, sweeping back and forth across the high ground, making it impossible for the fighters to organize a pursuit. Her hands were numb from the vibration, her shoulders aching from the recoil, but she kept firing until the ammunition belt ran dry. By then, the assault team had gained significant distance. "Carter exfil, now you've done enough." She jumped down from the truck and ran. Behind her, the remaining fighters were regrouping, realizing she was alone and vulnerable. She sprinted across open ground, her lungs burning, her wounded legs screaming in protest. Ahead, she could see the team. They'd stopped at the tree line, were providing covering fire. She ran toward them, toward safety, toward home. A round hit her vest, knocked her down. The armor stopped the bullet, but the impact drove the air from her lungs. She forced herself up, kept moving. Another round grazed her shoulder, spinning her around. She stumbled, but didn't fall. Then she was at the tree line and hands were grabbing her, pulling her into cover. Sullivan was checking her for wounds, Crawford was calling for immediate extraction, and everyone was moving toward the LZ. "You're completely insane," Webb told her, grinning despite the chaos. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." They reached the extraction point as the helicopters descended. Everyone piled in the birds, lifting off under fire, climbing toward safety. Ava sat in the back, bleeding from her shoulder, her vest dented from the round that had knocked her down, her hands still vibrating from the heavy gun. Crawford sat down next to her. "You saved us. Again. I'm starting to think you have a guardian angel. Or I'm just too stubborn to die." "Both, probably." Crawford looked at her seriously. "When I said don't take unnecessary risks, I meant it. That stunt with the technical, wishing could have gotten you killed. But it didn't, and everyone made it out. Next time you might not be so lucky." Crawford put a hand on her shoulder, careful of her wound. "You're one of us now, Carter. Fully, completely, no reservations. Which means we worry about you the same way we worry about each other. So when I tell you to be careful, I need you to listen." "Okay. Okay, Chief." The helicopter flew through the night, heading back to base. Below, Afghanistan stretched out in darkness and mountains and endless war. But inside the bird, there was only the quiet satisfaction of another mission, survived, another day earned. Reeves met them on the tarmac. He listened to Crawford's debrief, reviewed the tactical situation, then looked at Ava. "The mission was compromised. Zarqawi wasn't there. We lost operational security again." "Yes, sir. But everyone came home alive. And according to initial reports, you eliminated at least 15 enemy combatants and suppressed an ambush that should have annihilated the assault team." Reeves actually smiled. "That's not bad for a lieutenant who's been in country for less than a month." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. JSOC is pulling Iron Wolf from Afghanistan. The security leaks are too severe. The enemy knows us too well. We're being reassigned stateside for retraining and reorganization." Reeves paused. "You're being recommended for the Silver Star." Crawford, Hansen, and Stone all submitted statements supporting the citation. It won't make up for the mission failures, but it's something. The Silver Star, third highest combat decoration, given for gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States. Ava's father had earned one in Iraq before his death in Fallujah. "I don't need a medal, sir. I just need my team to stay alive." "And they did because of you. Accept the recognition, Lieutenant. You've earned it a dozen times over." Reeves gestured toward the compound. "Get cleaned up, get some rest. We fly out in 72 hours. 3 days later, Iron Wolf boarded a C-17 transport for the flight home. Ava sat with her team, Crawford, Webb, Chen, Rodriguez, Sullivan, Hansen. All of them battered and scarred, but alive. All of them watching as Afghanistan disappeared below the wings. "Think we'll ever come back?" Chen asked. "Probably," Crawford said. "Wars don't end just because we leave. They just find new people to fight them." "Philosophical," Webb observed. "Afghanistan's made you deep, Chief. Afghanistan's made me tired. I'm looking forward to sleeping in a bed that doesn't have sandbags for a roof." They flew in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from shared experience and mutual respect. Somewhere over the Atlantic, Sullivan nudged Ava awake. "Hey, Lieutenant, I've got something for you." He handed her a small wooden box. Inside was a patch, the Iron Wolf insignia, but different, custom made with her name embroidered below it, and underneath a single word: earned. "We all voted. You've been through the fire, proved yourself more times than anyone should have to. This is yours. Official member of Iron Wolf. No asterisks, no qualifications." Sullivan smiled. "Welcome home, Carter." Ava held the patch, felt the weight of it, the meaning. She'd started this deployment as an outsider, a diversity checkbox, someone who didn't belong. She was ending it as something else entirely. She was Iron Wolf. "Thank you," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. "Don't thank us. You earned every thread of that patch." Crawford leaned back in his seat. "Now get some sleep. When we land, the real work begins. Training the next generation, passing on what we've learned, making sure they don't make the same mistakes we did." The plane flew through the night, carrying them toward home, toward rest, toward whatever came next. And as Ava sat there with her team around her and her father's letter in her pocket and the patch in her hands, she understood something fundamental. She'd come to Afghanistan trying to prove she belonged, trying to show everyone, Reeves Crawford, the whole military establishment, that women could do this job, could survive in the most elite units, could pull their weight in combat. But somewhere along the way, that had stopped mattering. The proving, the validating, the constant need to be better than everyone else, just to be considered equal. It had fallen away like dead skin, revealing something truer underneath. She wasn't here to prove anything anymore. She was here because her teammates needed her, because evil existed in the world and someone had to stand against it, because her father had taught her that some things were worth fighting for, worth bleeding for, worth dying for if it came to that. And because when Crawford had been lying in that courtyard, when Webb had been surrounded, when Martinez had been bleeding out in a wadi, they hadn't cared about her gender or her politics or whether she'd proven herself according to some arbitrary standard. They just needed her to show up, and she had every single time. The plane touched down at Dover Air Force Base as the sun rose over the Atlantic. They deplaned in silence, each member of Iron Wolf carrying their own wounds and memories and hard-won wisdom. Some would retire, find peace in civilian life. Others would return to combat, to new deployments, to new wars. But they would always be connected. Brothers and sisters forged in fire, bound by sacrifice, united by the knowledge that they'd stood together when it mattered most. Ava walked across the tarmac with her rifle case in one hand and her father's letter in the other, the morning sun warm on her face. Ahead, her mother waited, tears streaming down her cheeks, arms open wide. Behind her, Crawford called out, "See you in 6 weeks, Carter. Don't get soft on us." "Wouldn't dream of it, Chief." She embraced her mother, felt the civilian world reaching for her, trying to pull her back into normalcy and safety and everything she'd left behind. But she knew the truth now, understood it in her bones. She would never fully come home. Part of her would always be on that ridge in Afghanistan, providing overwatch, protecting her team. Part of her would always be Iron Wolf. They had looked down on her once, the men who doubted and dismissed and declared she didn't belong. They had questioned her strength, her skill, her right to stand among them. But they didn't look down anymore. Now they looked up, looked to her for covering fire and steady hands, and the kind of courage that couldn't be taught, only discovered in the moments when everything fell apart. From the girl they underestimated to the sniper they depended on, from the outsider to the sister in arms, from someone trying to prove herself to someone who no longer needed to Ava. Carter had become exactly what her father always knew she could be: extraordinary.